Come in, come in. You're late for your own death. That was Cyanwrath. And he's welcoming our guests, my party, to the final battle. Or at least, it almost was. I'm Haven the Hare, and welcome to my campaign diaries for Hoard of the Dragon Queen. We are at the end of the Dragon Hatchery. It's been a wonderful time. This is actually going to be a campaign diary. It's going to be combining my sessions of 9 and 10. Because of the combat that was involved and the way things went down, we ended up, story-wise, there wasn't a lot to tell you, so we're going to combine this together. The party finishes entering the shrine, and they are greeted with Cyanwrath and Furloom and 4 gnolls, eagerly awaiting their presence. Behind them, a large statue of a 5-headed dragon with a black-headed of dragon, taking prominence in the pose. Surrounding them on the walls of this very polished room are other statues and carvings of dragon fights and battles, with a lot of black dragons involved in it. Cyanwrath boasts that they've been ready and greets them basically with death. And we attack. I had the party and the bad guys, they roll initiative. We end up with, of course, Lutau and Fire up near the top, and they both fire arrows and manage to damage one of the gnolls. And then we actually come to Rosalind, our dwarf, druid, ends up pretty high up in the initiative rankings, and she then casts, from her Staff of Wilderness, Wall of Thorns, effectively blocking off the back half of the shrine. It's a 60-foot long wall that is 10 foot tall and 5 feet wide. The gnolls attack the wall, and realizing that they can't really do much damage to it, and that it's hurting them if they get too close, they stop shortly thereafter. The rest of the party analyzes there's a space above they could go up and over, but they're realizing that the enemy isn't coming over. They decide to make their way further down the stairs leading out of that into the next room, realizing they blocked off their enemy. So leaving one person to kind of watch it, they start making their way. Now, as they're starting to make their way towards the stairs going down further into the Dragon Hatchery and into the actual hatchery room itself, they didn't know that yet though, they hear a clatter of like a metal box falling on the floor and something spilling from it, of a high-pitched tin, like, glass falling. And then the sound of water rushing through pipes. This is just enough warning for the party to actually dodge the acid that now is flowing out of the walls, out of the mouths of the dragons that are carved into it, and just filling the room. The party managed to make all their dodges, miss taking any damage directly from the acid. And almost all of them passed their next to reactionarily cover their mouths with cloth and fabric to stop breathing in the acid gas that is now forming in the room. Except for their kobold companion, Eddie. He ends up actually taking a good inhalation of the acid and starts coughing blood up and takes a little bit of damage from this. The barbarian wraps him up and carries him off into the next room with the rest of the party as they then make their way down and into the Dragon Hatchery proper. The Dragon Hatchery is a large cavernous room, very dark off to the right-hand side. In fact, they can kind of see what looks like a fog that is overlaying. They can see that the floor lets off and this fog begins, and they see a staircase about halfway through the room that leads down and into the fog. The far end is dark. Small lanterns light the upper portion of this room, and they can kind of make out a few lanterns in the fog, but they just see the light. You know what I'm saying? Like, they can see the light in the fog, but it doesn't actually, it just illuminates the fog, right? There's nothing else around it. The party makes its way over towards the staircase, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Fire who ran down first, followed by Arkin. And as they make their way down, they see these clay pots get flung from the far end of the upper level that then crash right about the stairs, spilling this gelatinous, oozy, gooey material and substance all over the base of the stairs, covering about 25 feet of it. The rest of the party investigates. They see movement down at the far end, but nobody gets really close enough to actually see deep into it. The substance ends up being very sticky, and there's a gluey texture to it that's making it very hard to walk over this entire area. We now have Arkin and Fire down in the fog, looking around, desperately trying to figure out what's down inside of here. The reason they're down there is at this point, or shortly before this, our druid had cast locate animals, I want to say, or beasts, either way, and asked dragons, locate a creature, and asked for dragons, and I told her that there was a dragon, a very light, faint thought of a dragon directly in front of them down in the pit. And Fire, of course, goes, "Ah!" and goes running off into it. They find, submerged in a cutout of the rock, black egg with a shiny surface to it. However, the same substance that they had just encountered in the shrine room is what the egg is slowly bobbing in this green, very burning taste, or burning smelling liquid as it's floating in acid. Fire, of course, is trying to figure out how she can now grab this egg, and realizing that its acid does make the smart call. It doesn't just reach in and grab it, because her senses tell her this is the same thing that tried to burn them in the other room. So as they are trying to figure this out, Arkin is looking around as well and notices another egg, a little further ways back and further in. This one, however, blue, a bright, brilliant blue, with etchings of white across it in these fine, jagged lines, reminiscent of lightning. And this egg, also buried in a crevasse cut into the rock, is filled with this warm, magically warm sand that the egg is submerged into. Fire and Arkin both start digging at the egg, and they manage to actually excavate this egg. Now, upon pulling the egg out of the sand, kobolds start flooding in from either side that had been hiding in the shadows of the far reaches. Knowing that the party had actually taken this long to get here, meaning that they had killed almost everybody else, or at least found a way past them, these kobolds, charged with guarding the eggs, had hidden, hoping that the eggs themselves would stay hidden and that the adventurers wouldn't find them. Unfortunately, once the adventurers started touching the eggs, the kobolds knew that if they didn't protect the eggs, that they too would die. So 12 kobolds come out of the darkness surrounding this cavern and attack Fire and Arkin. Lutau jumps the glue, runs down the stairs to join in it. Now, as he jumps the glue, 3 more of these pots come flying across from the far side. These pots, however, when they hit and crack across the ground, light fire and spread fire around them, and basically they're Molotov cocktails. Lighting the glue on fire as well as most of the area around it for a split second. The whole area is now lit up. They see through the fog the various kobolds that are attacking Arkin and Fire. The 6 kobolds hiding off in the side that were throwing the pots are found to be in the far edge, down on a divot at the far end of the room. The party, now seeing how this is going, starts to attack. Remy runs towards the ones at the far end, flinging daggers at the ones now that she can see that are hiding at the far end of the cavern. Callie marches forward and casts invisibility on herself, and then proceeds to put most of them over there to sleep over her 2 turns as she comes across. Lutau makes short work of some of the kobolds that he's fighting. Fire and Arkin, now holding an egg, try to reason with some of the kobolds, like, if you attack us, I'll drop the egg. Well, if you drop the egg, we're dead anyway, so I might as well kill you. And they had a standoff for a few moments until they finally gently put the egg down and start attacking. And actually, I think at one point, Fire is actually holding the egg from behind in her cloak that they'd wrapped around it as they're stretching across, and are kicking at the kobolds. Fortunately, the kobolds don't have much strength to this now level 4 party. And they managed to dispatch the kobolds relatively quickly. They put out the fire with a little bit of molding earth from Rosalind. And I think at one point Remy walks over and starts stabbing the sleeping kobolds that were left, and then turns around to find that the invisible Callie had also stabbed a few of the kobolds that were sleeping. It was a quick battle. And now they have this 150-pound huge blue egg that they're carrying. Rosalind makes the decision that she's going to turn into a mule and then see if they can have the materials, find some materials to strap the egg to herself or make a rickshaw or something. And they end up finding a few of the spears and tools that were used, shall we say, to like move and tend to the eggs that were so long poles and rakes and that kind of thing. And they managed to, through some rope and some rigging, makeshift build a little basket kind of thing, you know, like scaffolding based on the back of the mule to hold the egg in place. I tell them it's not that sturdy. She can walk with it, but it would be probably best it's wobbling if they then keep people on the other side. If she has to move at a full rate of speed, that there's a chance the egg will fall off. The fire out, the egg in possession, they make their way up and out. Now, the thorn wall is still up. They actually hadn't done much. It didn't take long, so the thorn wall's still up. They listen for a moment, don't hear any other combat coming from the other side of it or any other movement. So they start making their way out of the cave. Slowly at first, obviously. They're walking pretty slowly, and there's some tight passageways to try and get a mule with a giant 150-pound egg on the back of it through this cavern. But eventually they make their way all the way up and out. And as they come to the last turn, out of the fungus garden and into the main room that they'd first entered, they hear a familiar voice again. You may have delayed your death, but now it shall come swiftly. And sitting halfway down the room, right at the little pinch point in the room, are the four gnolls, Cyanwrath and Froilum. And that is where we ended Section 9, to be then picked up at Session 10. The party had just mounted the top of the stairs from the fungus garden up into this area. That's how we started Session 10. So now again, we now have the party more or less, well, two worse for wear, with a donkey, a mule, with a giant dragon egg strapped to her back, and the rest of the party. They all roll for initiative. Remy, Lutau, and Fire all end up near the top of the initiative order, and they go first. And there's a couple arrows that are fired from Fire and Lutau that do some damage. Remy comes around the corner, throws her knives, doing some damage to the other gnolls as well. Callie actually ends up right at the end of the first part, which was the first third of initiative, and she casts Sleep on one of the smaller gnolls. And then it's the gnolls' turn, and the gnolls rush forward, taking on the barbarian, and Callie and Remy a little bit actually stuck behind Callie and Eddie. After the gnolls have rushed forward, Cyanwrath rushes forward as well, and then Froilum casts Spiritual Weapon and gets it ready to attack, but hangs back a little bit. The rest of the party moves. Rosalind manages to actually snake her way around the edge and run down to a smaller hallway that's easier for her to defend and to hide in, as opposed to the opening. Fire runs over to protect her. Eventually, Remy makes her way over there too, but not before we finally see some hidden talents from Arkin as translucent angel wings appear behind her. She drops all of her cloak completely. Her whole body starts to glow, and her weapons suddenly become imbued with this radiant energy as she leaps and flies up the 10-foot wall to land right beside Cyanwrath. It was a striking moment. Nahis, our barbarian, is engaged in combat with Cyanwrath, being helped out by Arkin, and they exchange blows back and forth on their turns. We then have Eddie flinging stones from his sling. We have Callie casting another hideous laughter on the gnolls that had charged them, and actually taking the other smaller gnoll and making it drop and incapacitated prone and not doing anything anymore because it's laughing its butt off like a gnoll would do. The larger gnolls are attacking Remy. Remy manages to disengage and run over and join up with Fire now, so that throwing daggers as they can, shooting arrows, they manage to actually take out two of the larger gnolls, the largest gnolls, out, while hiding, helping, and protecting Rosalind, who unfortunately isn't doing much other than hiding in the cave with a giant egg on her back. Lutau is jumping, flipping, hitting gnolls, and hitting Cyanwrath as he joins the combat, taking away from the gnolls and joining the combat with Cyanwrath. So now you have our monk, you have our barbarian, and you have our cleric just beating on this blue half-dragon that is just swinging battle axes everywhere. The gnolls had taken some damage, as well as Cyanwrath had taken some damage at this point. And this is when Froilum now casts Mass Healing Word, and all of them gain a few hit points back, and all the gnolls and Cyanwrath heal. This infuriates the party a little bit, and Lu Tao disengages from Cyanwrath and charges over to Furloom to engage her and to try and stop her from casting so many spells. Furloom, not wanting this to happen, tries to cast Hold Person on Lu Tao, and it fails. Lu Tao is just too mentally strong to be captured by this spell. They exchange blows a little bit. Furloom takes some damage and then proceeds to run backwards again, disengaging, and then casting Spiritual... Oh, shoot, I blanked out the spell name. But anyway, its little tiny dragons start flying around and doing damage to anybody around her. So the rogues of Fire and Remy have eliminated both of the large gnolls that were attacking our halfling bard, Callie, and our kobold companion that they have, Eddie. They have been eliminated. Cyanwrath has taken a lot of damage and then ends up making some absolutely catastrophic failures to the point where she ends up falling off the cliff and down into the fungus area. Arkin uses this as an opportunity to leap off, jump down, and stab down with her sword. She does hit, but doesn't do enough damage and manages to only graze across the neck and face of Cyanwrath. Eddie, seeing this, thinks this looks like a grand idea and does the same thing. Grabs his short sword tetanus and jumps off the cliff and comes down. And misses entirely and ends up falling flat on his face because that's what kobolds do when they try, apparently, and emulate angels. Back to the rest of the combat. Lu Tao and Furloom are now engaged heavily in combat. Furloom is obviously trying to get away. Cast Hold Person again on Lu Tao. And again, he manages to shrug off the spell's effects. Furloom makes it most of the way to the exit before Lu Tao catches her with a water whip, which knocks her over, knocking her hit points down. At this point, Lu Tao is able to charge up, knock her while she's down, and end her. Cyanwrath has stood back up again. Arkin raises her sword, stabs it down, manages to catch it under the breastplate of his split mail and go right down through the clavicle and ends Cyanwrath's reign of lightning terror. The last of the gnolls are removed because their hideous laughter or they're incapacitated by sleeping. And the party wraps it up. Searching around, the party does find some interesting documents that Lu Tao finds in a document tube on Furloom. Some random silver and copper are found on the rest of the gnolls, as well as the weapons that they were carrying. And he watches over to Cyanwrath and grabs the other +1 battle axe that Cyanwrath was wielding, giving her now the matched set of Cyanwrath's battle axes, as well as a little tiny, shiny, illusionary mouse trinket that's found. The party, not finding much else, moves on. They end up bartering with the hunters outside to purchase their cart to then transport the egg into. Purchasing the cart and the horses, they make their way back to Green Nest. Green Nest greets them with open arms, and surprisingly, their journey was relatively quick, and Ayushin, the one who'd sent them there, had not quite fully healed and actually hadn't quite left on his own journey and offers to travel with them to their next location, where he'd asked them to meet him originally, over in the city that, unfortunately, I forgot to write down and I can hardly ever pronounce, but it's north of Green Nest. The party then beds down for the night, for a well-deserved long night's rest. So that was session 9 and 10 for my campaign diary of Hoard of the Dragon Queen. It was kind of interesting, though. I will pull in one little DM note here that I had geared up for this large, big boss battle with Cyanwrath and Furloom and the 4 giant gnolls, or the large gnolls, and to have it suddenly get completely paused by the Wall of Thorns, which, by the way, I'm not upset. It was a good use of the spell. It worked. It did exactly what they wanted to do. It put a pause on that battle. I think they thought it was going to actually stop them entirely, but then to have them go and be able to explore the next section of the maze. So I was kind of prepared for that. Like, I had the map already drawn out, so I was able to do it. I was totally expecting that night to be session 9 to be nothing but that giant boss battle. So almost like my session 9 and my session 10 got flipped. Like, I was expecting the Dragon Shrine to be 9, and then I expected them to go and then explore around inside of the actual hatchery with the eggs, and that ended up going first. And then I came over back here and relocated the boss battle to the entrance to the hatchery. But you know what happens We rolled with it. Nobody, I think, really realized I think they realized they did that to me, but at the same time, they thought maybe that they actually, like, just completely cornered off Cyanwrath and they were just sitting down behind a wall. My players never told me whether that's what they thought, or that they expected to actually have Cyanwrath and Verlim and the Gnolls be at the end waiting for them, which, by the way, they never bothered to go back and investigate. But that's beside the point. We'll talk about that in the DM notes, which actually is a great point and a segue into, if you'd like to know how I ran things and how I changed things up as a DM, you can check out my behind-the-scenes videos called How Haven Did It, and I will talk about everything that I changed for the fact that I have a 7-person party with an additional companion / 8 players, with Eddie, me playing Eddie, as well as how I changed it for the terrain and the models that I have and how I've adjusted some things, how I'm going to use things that I have, and how I've adjusted to make the story work a little better for the way I DM as well as for my players. So feel free to check that video out. If you'd like, subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell button so that you can get notified. I do post these videos about once a week, but if we don't meet, I won't post a video. However, I will try and make another video possibly about some other stuff. Like this week, though, I didn't make a video last week because I pushed both of the sessions together into one video for you guys. So with that being said, I will never monetize this channel. I hate commercials, but if you do want to support me, I have a card game that I created called 5-Minute Sword Fight. You'll find the links below. I also make chainmail dice pouches down below. At my Etsy store, feel free to purchase those. They'll help me out, as well as open up some free money to be able to purchase more stuff. They make great Christmas gifts, which you can tell because at the time of the filming of this, they're getting right at the beginning of December. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Haven the Hare, and I'll leave you with these final thoughts. What information are we going to find in the tubes of information that Verlim had on her that now Lutau holds? What will Leoshan make of that information as they travel north? And what are they going to do with the giant blue egg? If you want to know the answers to these questions, check in next time. And until then, though, may you make all of life's saving throws. At that moment, the final blow to Cyanwrath is delivered by... Shoot, who gave the final blow to Cyanwrath? I can't remember now. Was it Arkin?
I think it was Arkin.
Unfortunately, I didn't... because my computer kept restarting, I stopped recording, so...
I think it was Arkin.
Okay.
Because I tried.
That's right, she tried to do this to him, that's right. I will never monetize this channel. I hate commercials, but I will say if you'd like to support me, feel free. I buy a blah, 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 blah.